Go to London, let's talk to Marco Vicenzino, the Director of Global Strategy Project, which is an international affairs think tank. It would seem to me that for two different people, and in fact more of them, not so much publicly, but to say the same thing, which is something new, within days of what's been happening in France and in Greece, is designed simply to stop panic. Would you agree with that?
You have to strike a balance, and the rhetoric of moderation is important, particularly if you're dealing with international markets. There is this language and talk of a consensus for pro-growth measures. That's fine, that could happen, that's likely to happen, but still that will not replace the existing austerity measures that have been embodied in the European Fiscal Compact, which was signed in March.
So how do you get consolidation, which in another language is cuts, austerity, allied to growth in the short term? Perhaps it would work in the long term. You'd have to wait and see about that, but it needs to be in the short term for people to see it's working. How do you get that?
Well, many ways. I mean, you can do public works, putting people to work, public projects, things of that nature. But once again, these are short-term measures. It's a feel-good factor more than anything else. Ultimately, the loads of debt that have accumulated over the years, at some stage, are going to have to be paid. The longer it takes, the more the interests are going to mount, and as a result, what you have is a Eurozone, a Europe that's going to be impacting the rest of the global economy and possibly even bringing it down with it. So this is years of accumulation, I would say, of economic mismanagement in certain places like Greece, rampant corruption. So at the end of the day, one way or another, this debt is going to have to be paid. It's not going to simply go away. And I think many politicians, whether it's this young politician in Greece or Mr. Hollande's rhetoric during the campaign, it's typical populism, making people feel that this can be simply, swept under the carpet.
So are we going to see a Europe going forward without Greece as part of the Eurozone, returning to the drachma? Do you think that's quite likely now, because the government there, well, there is no government there at the moment, those serious politicians don't seem to be able to agree on what to do, and therefore Greece might renege on its debt?
Yeah. It's an inherent contradiction in Greece. If you ask ordinary Greeks in the polls, they'll say we want to remain part of the euro. Yet the elections and the results speak of something else. So what happens is that this political uncertainty is rushing Greece towards the euro exit door. And what happens here is that the Germans in particular will no longer have patience in terms of trying to renegotiate. There's going to be no more cliff-hanging parliamentary votes. Basically, what happened, I think, is that many Europeans, officials at the highest levels, maybe have not said it directly, but in a way have written off Greece, created a firewall zone, and focus on what needs to be focused on, which is the next emergency situation, specifically Spain.
Let me ask you for your prediction. Two questions rolled into one, if you like. Do you think Greece will leave the euro? And if it does, will other countries inevitably follow?
Greece right now has an international assistance tranche that will be arriving in June. If they decide to have another election, the international markets will have no mercy on Greece, and Greece will be forced to exit the euro. Specifically for economic reasons, emanating obviously from political uncertainty. Will other countries follow? I would say it's unlikely, because once Greece sets an example, others will see that precedent and the fear that it instills and the price that'll have to be paid. So I think it's likely that Greece will exit if it doesn't get its act together politically in the next month. And secondly, others are not likely to follow.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. That's Marco Vicenzino talking to us from London.